Good afternoon, Mr. President. Thank you so much for taking time out of your demanding schedule.
My pleasure. The content of your request seemed like something I should carve out a few minutes for.
I should point out that I voted for you, as your promises of hope and change, transparency, and accountability, as well as putting the government back into the hands of the American people.
Not to be abrupt or rush you, but you only have 20 minutes.
I'll take that as an invitation to cut to the chase.
I'm all ears, or so I've been told.
Sir, in the very near future, we'll be experiencing our first 9/11 anniversary with you as Commander-in-Chief. In researching your position regarding the events of 9/11 and the subsequent investigation that followed, am I correct to understand that you fully support and endorse the findings of the Commission report, otherwise known as the official story?
Do I have any reason not to, given that most of us are presumably in touch with similar evidence?
I really wish that were the case, sir. Are you aware, Mr. President, of the recent stunning revelations that 60% of the 9/11 commissioners have publicly stated that the government agreed not to tell the truth about 9/11 and that the Pentagon was engaged in deliberate deception about their response to the attack?
I am aware of certain infighting during the course of their very thorough and tireless investigative process.
You'll notice, sir, on the page of the dossier dated August 6th from the Washington Post, the statements of John Farmer, senior counsel to the 9/11 Commission, his quote saying, "I was shocked at how different the truth was from the way it was described." He goes on further to state, "The NORAD air defense tapes told a radically different story from what had been told to us and the public for 2 years." On pages 2 and 3, sir, are the statements of Commissioner Max Clellan, an ex-senator from Georgia who resigned, stating, "It's a national scandal. This investigation is now compromised. One of these days, we will have to get to the full story because the 9/11 issue is so important to America, but this White House wants to cover it up."
Mistakes were clearly made, but we as a people and as a country need to move forward. It is obviously in our best interest as a democratic society to focus our efforts and our resources on the future of this great nation and our ability to protect the American people and our allies from this type of terrorism in the coming years.
Mr. President, we cannot move forward with a bottomless warren of unanswered questions surrounding that day and its aftermath. Sir, how can we focus on the future when the Commission itself is on record stating that they do not know the truth? 9/11 has been the pretext for the systematic dismantling of our Constitution and Bill of Rights. Your administration is reading from the same playbook that the Bush administration foisted on America through documented secrecy and deception. You promised to abolish the Patriot Act and then voted to reauthorize it. You pledged to end warrantless wiretapping against the American people, and now you energetically defend it. You decried the practice of rendition and now continue it. You promised over and over again on the campaign trail that you would end the practice of indefinite detention. Instead, you have expanded it to permanent detention of detainees without trial.
Mr. Sheen, I'm having a difficult time sitting here and listening to you draw distorted parallels between the Bush-Cheney regime and mine.
Mr. President, the parallels are not distorted just because you say they are. Let's just stick to the facts. Are you aware, Mr. President, how long it took to begin the investigation into 9/11?
I know it must have seemed like a very long time for all the grieving families.
It was a very long time, Mr. President. 440 days. Roughly 14 months. Does it bother you, Mr. President, that it only took 5 hours for Defense Secretary Donald Rumsfeld after the initial attack to recommend and endorse a full-scale offensive against Iraq?
I am not aware of any such purported claim.
Mr. President, I realize we're very short on time, so please allow me to run down a list of bullet points. Please keep in mind, everything here is documented as fact and part of the public record. Okay, first, on the FBI's most wanted list, Osama bin Laden is not charged with the crimes of 9/11. Second, FBI translator Sybil Edmonds was dismissed and gagged by the DOJ after she revealed that the government had foreknowledge of plans to attack American cities using planes as bombs as early as April 2001. Third, quote from Mary Giuliani, "I went down to the scene and we set up headquarters at 75 Barclay Street, which was right there with the police commissioner, the fire commissioner, the head of emergency management, and we were operating out of there when we were told that the World Trade Center was going to collapse. And it did collapse before we could actually get out of the building." Well, who told him this? To this day, the answer to this question remains unanswered. Number 4. 2 years before the September 11th attacks, the North American Aerospace Defense Command conducted exercises simulating hijacked airliners used as weapons to crash into targets and cause mass casualties. One of the targets was the World Trade Center. Number 5. The mysterious white plane flying in restricted airspace over the White House shortly before 10 a.m. on the morning of 9/11 was in fact Air Force's E-4B, a specially modified Boeing 747 with a communications pod behind the cockpit. Number 6. 3 F-16s assigned to Andrews Air Force Base 10 miles from Washington, D.C. are conducting training exercises in North Carolina. Andrews Air Force Base had no armed fighters on alert and ready to take off on the morning of 9/11. Number 7. World Trade Center Building Number 7. Watch the video of its collapse. Number 8. 3 months before the attacks of 9/11, Dick Cheney usurped control of NORAD, and therefore he and no one else on planet Earth had the power to call for military sorties on the hijacked airliners on 9/11. He did not exercise that power. Number 9. The FBI conducted an investigation of at least 5 of the 9/11 hijackers being trained at U.S. military flight schools. Those investigations are now sealed and need to be declassified. Number 10. New York firefighters Mike Malone and Nicholas DeMasi went public to say they had found the black boxes at the World Trade Center, but were told to keep their mouths shut by FBI agents. Number 11. Hundreds of eyewitnesses all described multiple explosions in both towers before and during the collapse. Number 12. An astounding video uncovered from the archives shows BBC News correspondent Jane Stanley reporting on the collapse of the World Trade Center Building 7 over 20 minutes before it fell at 5:20 p.m. on the afternoon of 9/11. Number 13. The technology to enable cell phone calls from high-altitude airline flights was not created until 2004. Number 14. The size of a Boeing 757 is approximately 125 foot in width, and yet images of the impact zone at the Pentagon supposedly caused by the crash merely show a hole no more than 16 foot in diameter. Number 15. What is the meaning behind the following quote attributed to Dick Cheney? During the time that the airplane was coming into the Pentagon, there was a young man who would come in and say to the Vice President, "The plane is 50 miles out. The plane is 30 miles out." And when it got down to, "The plane is 10 miles out," the young man said to the Vice President, "Do the orders still stand?" And the Vice President turned and whipped his neck around and said, "Of course the orders still stand. Have you heard anything to the contrary?" As the plane was not shot down, in addition to the fact that the armed fighter jets were nowhere near the plane and the Pentagon defensive system was not activated, are we to take it that the orders were to let the plane find its target? Number 16. The Miami Herald reported how the Bush administration was refusing to release the 900-page congressional report on 9/11 because it wanted to avoid enshrining embarrassing details in the report. Number 17. Top Pentagon officials and San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown canceled their scheduled flights for September 11th. Calls from cell phones, which formed an integral part of the official government version of events, were technologically impossible at the time. Number 19. President Bush and Vice President Cheney would only meet with the Commission under specific clandestine conditions. To date, nothing they spoke of that day exists in the public domain. Number 20. A few days after the attack, the FBI reported that a paper passport had been found in the ruins of the World Trade Center. At least a third of the World Trade Center victims' bodies were vaporized, and many of the victims of the Pentagon incident were burned beyond recognition. And yet visas and paper passports which identify the perpetrators and back up the official version of events miraculously survive explosions and fires that we are told melted steel buildings. Mr. President, I implore you, based on the evidence you now possess, to use your executive power. Prove to us all, sir, that you do, in fact, care. Create a truly comprehensive and open congressional investigation of 9/11 and its aftermath. The families deserve the truth. The American people and the rest of the free world deserve the truth, Mr. President. Make sure you're on the right side of history.
I am on the right side of history. Thank you, Charlie. My staff and I will be in touch.